Kosovo legal status is a mess of epic proportions. Most people don't realize how deep the problem is. This could reshape the future maps of the world and destroy international laws. The information I use in this video comes from an essay written by James Lindsay. Preventing the Emergence of Self-Determination as a Norm of Secession, an assessment of the Kosovo unique case argument, James Lindsay, London School of Economics and Political Science. I read some other articles by the same author, and he is for independent Kosovo. But he thinks this can be achieved only through mutual recognition. He thinks that the situation was mishandled in 2008. How things went down the hill. During War II, Yugoslavia was destroyed. In 1945, Yugoslavia was recreated as a federation of 6 republics. One of the 6 was Serbia. Republic of Serbia has 2 autonomous provinces called Vojvodina and Kosovo. Communist regime gave huge rights to Vojvodina and Kosovo. I do believe that communists were planning to give the status of republics to Vojvodina and Kosovo eventually. But they never did. In 1974, Yugoslavia got a new constitution that served as legal point for independence in 1990s. In 1990s, there was the Badinter Commission led by Frenchman Robert Badinter. The commission had 5 members coming from France, Germany, Italy, Spain and Belgium. Their job was to solve legal issues emerging from Yugoslavia. The commission worked 1991 to 1993 and gave opinions on several topics. They studied the 1974 Yugoslav constitution and declared that only 6 federal republics have the right to become independent. Nations, minorities and provinces have no right to secession. They put the sovereignty and territorial integrity above the right of self-determination. The Commission also declared that current borders have to be respected. In the 1990s, no major foreign politician advocated for independent Kosovo. What's the deal with sovereignty and territorial integrity? The World War II was a turning point in history in many ways. United Nations UN was formed after World War II. Before World War II, politicians were more open to changing borders. After World War II, borders became more permanent. International law says that one state has to respect sovereignty and territorial integrity of another state. Membership in UN is especially important in this case. If a state is UN member, their borders are fixed and permanent. The principles of sovereignty and territorial integrity were reaffirmed in the 1970 UN Charter and by Helsinki Declaration in 1975. What about the self-determination? The right of self-determination was part of decolonization. For example, France had many colonies in Africa. The colonies have the right of self-determination and thus they declared independence from France. This is the reason why Kosovo Albanians now claim that Kosovo was a colony. Because if Kosovo was a colony, then they could use the self-determination argument. Unfortunately for them, Kosovo did not have legal status of a colony. Over the years, foreign provinces tried to secede and were denied. In 1961, Katanga tried to secede from the Congo, Biafra tried to secede from Nigeria. Now we come to a very interesting case of Bangladesh and Pakistan. In 1971, Bangladesh seceded from Pakistan. In 1974, Bangladesh became a UN member only after being recognized by Pakistan. This means that new state has to have recognition of the parent state. Existing state cannot be dismembered without its consent. Eritrea and East Timor were granted independence by their parent states. This is the reason why the West is pressuring Serbia to recognize independence of Kosovo. Why would Serbia agree to be dismembered? If Serbia agrees to the independence of Kosovo, what is stopping Vojvodina from seceding? Both Vojvodina and Kosovo have the same legal status within Serbia. What led to the change of heart of the West considering independence of Kosovo? In 1996-1997, Kosovo Albanians formed KLA, Kosovo Liberation Army. They started uprising against Yugoslav army and the police. I would compare KLA to IRA, Irish Republican Army. Albanians see KLA as freedom fighters and heroes, while Serbs see KLA as terrorist organization. The fighting intensified in 1998. The West offered Rambouillet agreement that would regulate the situation. Milosevic refused the agreement because it would allow NATO forces free access across the entire territory of Yugoslavia. Why would NATO ask to have free access to Belgrade, Novi Sad, Niš? My personal opinion is that the West and NATO didn't want Milosevic to sign Rambouillet agreement. After the end of Cold War, many called for NATO to be disbanded because it was too expensive and not needed anymore. By bombing Yugoslavia, NATO showed its strength and usefulness. The bombing of Yugoslavia lasted between March and June 1999. In June 1999, Yugoslav army and the police withdrew from Kosovo. This is seen as Yugoslav-Serbian defeat. But this did not lead to the change of borders. In 1999, UN issued the 1244 resolution about Kosovo. Kosovo was placed under indefinite UN administration. The 1244 resolution establishes sovereignty and territorial integrity of Yugoslavia. Now, Kosovo Albanians point out that 1244 resolution talks about Yugoslavia and not Serbia. Yugoslavia existed until 2003 when the federation changed its name to Serbia and Montenegro. In 2006, Montenegro declared independence after a legal referendum. Serbia was accepted into UN as independent state. Now Albanians claim that they have the right to secede because Yugoslavia doesn't exist anymore. Some Albanians even say that Kosovo was not part of Serbia but part of Yugoslavia. If this is true, then why did Kosovo wait until 2008 to declare independence? Whom did they declare independence from in 2008? In 2008, there is no Yugoslavia. The author Karen Lindsay writes that international community forgot about Kosovo. They had problems with 9/11, invasions of Afghanistan and Iraq. In March 2004, Kosovo Albanians started violent riots. Karen Lindsay believes that it was a turning point for the West to embrace the idea of independent Kosovo. I think foreign politicians already wanted independent Kosovo in 1999. They were just sneaky about it. There were two major conclusions. No way to reintegrate Kosovo back into Serbia. Kosovo Albanians would stage uprising if that happened. All efforts to reach a negotiated solution had failed. This is where international community was shady. Marti Ahtisaari was a special UN envoy for Kosovo. He made proposals that were unacceptable for Serbia, supervised independence of Kosovo. These negotiations failed in 2007. New negotiations were supervised by USA, Russia, and EU. USA and most EU countries decided that the only right solution is independence. Their legal stance is that Kosovo is a unique case and cannot be used as precedent. Are they really that naive? They named 3 things that give Kosovo a right to become independent. As you can guess, none of the 3 is unique. The status of Kosovo within Yugoslavia. The Badinter Commission already established that only the 6 federal republics have the right to secede. If we reject the findings of Badinter Commission, then Croatian Serbs and Bosnian Serbs have the right to declare independence. Kosovo had no unique status because Vojvodina had the same status. By rejecting Badinter Commission, we would face new wars. The consequences of human rights abuses. In 2008, European Parliament claimed that Kosovo has the right to independence on the grounds of human rights abuses. Many ethnic groups in the world suffer human rights abuses. Does this mean they all have the right to independence? Carl Lindsay writes how other ethnic groups could be encouraged by this to start rebellions and recreate the situation with Kosovo. Some think that Kosovo should have been given independence in 1999 because that's when abuses happened. In 2008, no one was killing or hurting Albanians. Milosevic was already dead by then. In 2008, we are talking about historic human rights abuse. Who can say when historic abuses stop mattering? During World War II, pro-Nazi regime in Croatia killed Serbs. Does this mean that Croatian Serbs had the right to declare independence based on human rights abuse suffered in World War II? If you argue that Tudjman wasn't Pavelic, I can counter-argue that Tadic wasn't Milosevic. British ambassador in Belgrade, Sir Ivan Roberts, said, "It is hard to explain to Serbs why, when Milosevic was still in power, a settlement was imposed which left Kosovo legally and formally part of Serbia. But having overthrown Milosevic and lived according to the rules of the international community for the last 7 years, the Serbs now face being punished by losing nearly 20% of their territory." Kosovo independence was a huge blow to pro-EU democratic regime in Serbia. In 2008, Serbs felt betrayed. The period of UN administration. Some claim that UN administration cannot last indefinite, so that a solution has to be found. Their solution was recognizing the independence of Kosovo. Does this mean that UN administration ended? Of course not. UN representatives are still in Kosovo almost 24 years after the fighting ended. The infamous 1244 resolution places no time limits to UN administration. Others cite how the 1244 resolution did not explicitly forbade the independence, so we should worry about what is left unwritten. USA politicians claim that Kosovo should be independent because it's the will of dominant ethnic group. Other countries see this as self-determination and avoid it at all costs. Did Kosovo become precedent? Carl Lindsay mentioned how Russia used Kosovo precedent when Russia recognized independence of South Ossetia and Abkhazia. This happened after a short war between Russia and Georgia. The essay was written before the fighting started between Russia and Ukraine. Can this be applied to their situation? There are many similarities. Independent UN member state, Serbia, Ukraine, has region with ethnic minority as dominant population. The ethnic minority, Albanians, Russians, organize uprising, claim human rights abuses. The state is then attacked by foreign power, NATO, Russia, that wants to protect the minority. The major difference is that NATO didn't want to send ground troops. But legally speaking, the situation is very similar. One could say that Russians in Ukraine have the right of self-determination. The case of Serbia-Kosovo shows us that UN resolutions mean nothing. International law cannot be discriminative. If Kosovo has the right to become independent, then Cornwall, Quebec, Corsica, California have the same right. What do I think? International community cannot force Serbia to give up Kosovo. They can stop talks with Serbia about EU membership, but that carrot had gone rotten years ago. They can try to blackmail Serbia with financial restrictions, which would inspire Serbia to turn to China, Arab countries. I think the best solution was to accept whole Serbia, including Kosovo, in EU. But this isn't possible anymore. No Serb politician is suicidal enough to recognize the independence of Kosovo. Some fringe Serb politicians can blab about it without major consequences because they will never hold power to make it happen. Serbia is UN member and doesn't need mutual recognition with Kosovo. The Kosovo precedent is established and we will see it used in the future by separatist movements across the globe. Serb enemies like to imagine how Serbia will be completely dismembered. But they forget this could happen to their countries too. We might end up living in city-states like in ancient Mesopotamia. And all because international lawmakers are bad at their jobs.